The Young and the Restless spoilers. The residents of Genoa City are preparing for what should be one of the most romantic and long-awaited events of the year, the wedding of Danny Romolotti and Christine Blair. Yet, as every longtime fan of The Young and the Restless knows, no wedding in this town ever unfolds without turbulence, secrets, and heartbreak simmering just beneath the surface. What should be a celebration of love and new beginnings could very well turn into a spectacle of rivalry, regret, and shattered illusions. At the center of the approaching storm stands one woman whose name alone ignites memories of passion and chaos, Phyllis Summers. Her fiery temper, impulsive nature, and deep-rooted jealousy make her a wild card in an already fragile situation. And with her ex-lover Danny preparing to marry his old flame Christine, Phyllis may not be able to resist the temptation to make her presence, and her pain, known to everyone watching. For years, the tangled triangle between Phyllis, Danny, and Christine has been one of the most enduring storylines in The Young and the Restless. Phyllis's love for Danny has always been obsessive, a mix of genuine affection and dangerous possessiveness. Danny, the rock star who once fell for her passion, could never truly untangle himself from Christine, the woman who represented everything he once wanted but could never fully hold. Christine, meanwhile, spent years trying to move beyond the pain Phyllis caused, only to find herself standing once again on the brink of a ceremony that could reignite the past in the most destructive way possible. This time, it is not just a wedding, it is a reckoning, a collision of love and vengeance that has been decades in the making. Whispers around Genoa City suggest that Phyllis has been struggling to contain her emotions ever since news of Danny and Christine's engagement broke. She has tried to convince herself that she is above it all, that she has grown beyond the reckless woman who once destroyed everything she touched. But Phyllis has always been ruled by passion more than reason, and every time she hears Danny's name connected with Christine's, the old fury returns. She sees Christine not as a rival, but as a symbol of every humiliation she has ever endured, the perfect, moral, self-righteous woman who always seemed to come out on top. And in Phyllis's world, that balance cannot stand unchallenged for long. It's not hard to imagine what might happen if Phyllis shows up at the ceremony. Fans remember all too vividly the infamous cake battle between Catherine Chancellor and Jill Abbott at Billy Abbott and Chloe Mitchell's wedding back in 2009, a spectacle of broken decorum and broken hearts that became one of the most unforgettable scenes in Y&R history. If anyone could top that moment, it would be Phyllis Summers. The idea of a full-scale cake war erupting in the middle of Christine and Danny's carefully planned day feels both outrageous and entirely possible. After all, chaos has always followed Phyllis like perfume, intoxicating, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. Even Daniel Romolotti Jr., Phyllis's son, finds himself torn between loyalty and exhaustion. Having spent years trying to navigate the emotional minefield his mother creates wherever she goes, Daniel has reached a point where he no longer knows how to save her from herself. He has watched her burn bridges, rebuild them, and then set them aflame again, all in the name of love. He understands her pain, perhaps more than anyone, but he also knows how destructive it can become. For Daniel, Christine represents stability, a reminder of the life his father could have had if things had gone differently. To Phyllis, however, Christine is the ultimate adversary, a woman who stole not only Danny's heart but also the life she believed she was meant to live. Rumor has it that Phyllis might crash the wedding not out of hatred, but out of desperation, a last attempt to reclaim something she's already lost. Her entrance could be grand and unexpected, the kind that silences the crowd and freezes the air with tension. Perhaps she walks dressed in red, her signature color, radiating confidence while hiding heartbreak. The ceremony could pause as all eyes turn toward her, Christine's expression tightening, Danny's guilt written across his face. Phyllis might raise a glass in mock congratulations, her words dripping with charm and venom in equal measure. The toast could start as a performance, a few carefully chosen words of feigned sincerity, before unraveling into a scathing confession of love, betrayal, and resentment. It would be classic Phyllis, equal parts tragic and theatrical, a spectacle of pain disguised as power. And then, of course, there is the question of Daniel's date. If he were to bring Tessa Porter, the singer whose career and emotional depth mirror his own, it could add another layer of complexity to an already volatile night. Tessa, with her calm demeanor and quiet empathy, might be the only one capable of diffusing the tension between Phyllis and the rest of the wedding guests. Yet even she might not be able to contain the storm if Phyllis decides to take center stage. Daniel, forever caught between his love for his mother and his desire for peace, could find himself forced to choose sides once more, the loyal son or the voice of reason. Beneath all the speculation, there's a deeper truth at play. Phyllis is not just angry at Danny and Christine, she's angry at the passage of time, at the way life has moved on without her. Watching Danny find happiness again reminds her of everything she lost, the innocence of young love, the family she fractured, the dreams that slipped through her fingers. Her pain isn't rooted only in jealousy. It's in grief, regret, and the cruel awareness that no amount of defiance can undo what's been done. Phyllis has always been a woman at war with herself, brilliant, passionate, and destructive in equal measure. And in Genoa City, self-destruction is often the most dangerous form of revenge. As the wedding day approaches, the tension builds. Christine, radiant and hopeful, chooses to believe that her love for Danny will finally be free of the past. Danny, though devoted, carries the weight of old mistakes that refuse to stay buried. And somewhere in the shadows, Phyllis watches, her emotions simmering like a live wire. Whether she intends to crash the ceremony or not, her presence looms over it. Even if she stays away, her absence will speak volumes, a silent reminder of the chaos that shaped them all. But if Phyllis does appear, the event could become one of the most iconic moments in the Young and the Restless history. A cake flying through the air, champagne spilling across satin gowns, gasps turning into cheers, all set against the backdrop of decades of heartbreak. It would be a scene that blends nostalgia and madness, echoing the days when Catherine Chancellor and Jill Abbott transformed feuds into art. Fans would revel in the chaos, not just for the spectacle, but for what it represents, the eternal cycle of love, loss, and revenge that defines Genoa City. Still, behind the laughter and the scandal, there would be something achingly human in Phyllis's breakdown. She is not just a villain, she is a woman who loves too deeply, who fights too fiercely, and who fears being forgotten. Her pain, raw and unfiltered, is what makes her both dangerous and relatable. In trying to destroy the wedding, she might only be trying to destroy the part of herself that still hopes, still aches, still believes she can win back what she once had. And that is what makes her story timeless. Because in The Young and the Restless, love is never just love, it is war disguised as passion, redemption disguised as chaos. As Genoa City awaits the day of Danny and Christine's wedding, one thing is certain, it will not pass quietly. Whether Phyllis crashes the event with a smirk and a champagne flute or watches from afar with tears in her eyes, her shadow will fall across every vow and every kiss. The woman who has loved, lost, and fought harder than anyone will once again remind everyone why she can never truly be ignored. And perhaps, when the music stops and the guests disperse, what remains won't just be the wreckage of a ruined wedding, but the lingering truth that in this city, the heart is the most dangerous weapon of all. For weeks, Genoa City had been holding its breath, waiting for the wedding that promised to close one chapter of its tangled romantic history and open another. The union of Danny Romalotti and Christine Blair was being celebrated as a long-overdue fairy tale. A rekindling of love that had withstood decades of heartbreak, separation, and time. Yet, beneath the floral arrangements and the golden invitations, there was a growing sense of unease, because no matter how carefully Christine planned her perfect day, one name lingered like a storm cloud above the sunshine: Phyllis Summers. She had been asked, begged even, to stay away. But Phyllis had never been a woman who obeyed warnings, and her history of ignoring boundaries was as legendary as her passion. Christine knew this, Daniel feared it, and Danny tried to pretend that love could somehow erase it. But Genoa City's residents, seasoned veterans of emotional chaos, knew better. They had seen too many weddings turn into battlefields, too many toasts dissolve into tears, too many perfect days ruined by ghosts that refused to stay buried. A month before the ceremony, Christine had taken Daniel aside with calm determination, her voice trembling not with anger but with exhaustion. She had asked him to do what no son should have to keep his mother away. After everything that had happened between Phyllis and her, after years of deception, manipulation, and emotional warfare, Christine simply couldn't risk her presence at the altar. It wasn't hatred anymore, it was self-preservation. Christine wanted her wedding day to represent a clean slate, a moment free of old grudges and pain. Danny had agreed, even though a part of him still felt the pull of compassion for the woman who once shared his life. But Phyllis's shadow lingered between them like a haunting refrain in one of his old songs. Danny wanted to believe that she would respect their boundaries, that she had finally matured, but deep down he knew better. Phyllis never truly let go of anything. Love, betrayal, victory, they all burned within her long after everyone else had moved on. And now, with her son caught in the middle, the stage was set for another emotional collision. Daniel's life had finally found balance again, something rare and precious in Genoa City. His connection with Tessa Porter had grown quietly, without fanfare, built on shared creativity and mutual understanding. Both carried the scars of complicated pasts, yet found peace in one another's company. Tessa's calm spirit grounded him, her artistry reflected his own, and together they began to rediscover joy in the simplest moments, writing music, late-night walks, and dreams that didn't end in disappointment. But as the wedding approached, Daniel could feel the old chaos creeping back in. He knew his mother too well to trust her silence. Every time his phone buzzed, he half expected it to be Phyllis announcing her arrival, demanding an invitation she wasn't given. Tessa noticed the tension in his eyes and tried to reassure him, but even she understood the truth. No one could predict what Phyllis might do once emotion overtook reason. Phyllis had told herself she wouldn't go. She rehearsed it like a mantra. She would stay home, she would drink champagne alone, she would not let Danny or Christine see how much it hurt. But as the day grew closer, the rational part of her mind began to lose its grip. The thought of watching the man she once loved marry the woman who had always judged her filled her with a fury she could barely contain. Phyllis was many things, brilliant, passionate, impulsive, but she was never passive. She couldn't bear the idea of Genoa City celebrating Christine as the triumphant heroine while she was painted once again as the villain left behind. Every instinct told her to fight it, to show up and remind everyone that she still mattered, that she was still a force to be reckoned with. The more she tried to suppress the urge, the stronger it grew, until she found herself standing in front of her mirror on the morning of the wedding, holding a crimson dress she swore she wouldn't wear. Her heart pounded with equal parts dread and exhilaration. Maybe she wouldn't ruin anything. Maybe she'd just watch from afar. But Phyllis Summers had never been capable of quiet. Meanwhile, Christine was radiant, her happiness genuine yet fragile. The years had not dimmed her love for Danny. Their story had begun long ago, in the mid-80s, when she was still the youthful model known as Cricket and he was the charming rock star whose music filled every teenage heart with longing. Their connection had started as friendship, a mutual admiration, laughter, the kind of chemistry that others noticed before they did. It wasn't until 1986 that the friendship blossomed into something deeper, and even then, their love was tested by fame, distance, and the interference of others. They had loved, lost, reunited, and drifted apart more times than they could count. Yet somehow, through all the detours of life, they had found their way back. To Christine, this wedding was not just about romance, it was a declaration that love could endure the worst storms and still emerge intact. To Danny, it was redemption, a chance to right the mistakes of the past and prove that maturity could heal what youth had broken. But history, in Genoa City, rarely stays in the past. As the wedding guests arrived, a faint tension ran through the room, invisible yet unmistakable. People whispered about whether Phyllis would show. No one dared to say her name too loudly, as if invoking it might summon her. Daniel tried to keep calm, focusing on Tessa beside him, whose quiet grace gave him strength. They were supposed to have a beautiful evening together, a night to celebrate love, maybe even take a step closer to defining their own relationship. But beneath the music and laughter, Daniel's mind was somewhere else, replaying every conversation he'd had with his mother, every promise she'd broken, every moment she had sworn she'd changed. He loved her, but he also feared her. Because when Phyllis felt cornered, she didn't retreat, she exploded. And then, inevitably, she appeared. The doors opened, and there she was, striking, unapologetic, wearing red like a warning. Gasps rippled through the crowd, Christine's eyes widening, Danny's shoulders tightening with resigned disbelief. For a brief second, time froze. Phyllis didn't speak right away. She simply stood there, her expression unreadable, as if daring anyone to tell her she didn't belong. Then, with a slow, confident stride, she approached the edge of the ceremony. It was a scene that felt almost cinematic, the embodiment of every unresolved emotion that had haunted this trio for decades. To some, her presence was infuriating. To others, it was inevitable. Genoa City had always belonged to the bold, and Phyllis had never been anything less. Christine's perfect day began to crumble in slow motion. The officiant hesitated, the guests exchanged anxious glances, and Daniel's heart sank. He could see the tremor in his mother's hands, the way her pain was disguised as defiance. He knew that underneath her bravado was a wound that had never healed, the feeling of being unwanted, unloved, erased. Phyllis had spent her entire life fighting to be seen, and in that moment, she made sure everyone saw her. Whether she intended to deliver a speech, a toast, or simply stand as a living reminder of the past, no one could say. But the damage was already done. The illusion of peace shattered the moment she walked through the door. For Daniel, the fallout was immediate. The romantic night he had envisioned with Tessa vanished, replaced by embarrassment and heartbreak. He could feel the weight of everyone's judgment as he tried to mediate between his mother's chaos and Christine's fury. Tessa, ever patient, tried to comfort him, but even her words couldn't erase the tension. His mother's actions had once again stolen his peace. The date that was supposed to mark a new beginning for his relationship with Tessa became yet another reminder that Phyllis's shadow would always loom over his life. The guilt and frustration he carried were palpable, the endless cycle of loving someone who constantly self-destructed and took everyone else with her. As for Phyllis, once the initial rush faded, reality began to sink in. She had crossed another line, perhaps one too many. The whispers, the judgment, the horrified looks, they pierced her armor. Somewhere deep inside, she knew she had ruined not only Christine's day but also the fragile trust she was beginning to rebuild with her son. Yet, even as regret flickered across her face, pride would not let her apologize. In true Phyllis fashion, she left as dramatically as she arrived, her head high, her heart shattered. When the night finally ended, the echoes of her presence lingered like smoke. The wedding had survived, but barely. The vows were spoken, the rings exchanged, but the joy was muted, the magic diluted by the chaos that had preceded it. Danny and Christine's love had triumphed, but not unscathed. Daniel and Tessa's budding relationship faced its first real test, not because of their own choices, but because of the ghost that refused to let them live freely. And Phyllis, alone once more, sat in the quiet aftermath, knowing she had once again become the villain in a story that was never supposed to be about her. In the end, Genoa City would move on, as it always did, but the ripples of that night would remain. The romantic fairy tale had been tainted by reality, and the woman who couldn't let go had reminded everyone that love in this town is never pure, never peaceful, and never without consequence. Because in the young and the restless, every wedding is just another battlefield, and every heart, no matter how noble or broken, carries its own weapon.